to heaven. I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. And I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. When we're out together dancing, out together dancing, out together dancing cheek to cheek. Why should we waste a night like this? Why should we waste a single kiss? Why can't we laugh at tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll pay what we borrow. For all we know, we may never meet again. Before you go, make this moment sweet again.
Good morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, April 30th to order. Today we have 4 items on our agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances or withdrawals, so we'll hear them in the order they appear. I don't have any announcements or appeals. Are you aware of any? No. Okay, so we'll move on to comments from the members of the public. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 2618 Mesa School Lane, if the applicant would like to come up. Okay, if the applicant's not here, then we'll skip to the next one, and I'll go right back to it. The next item is item B, 2911 De La Vina Street. Is the applicant here for that one? Or no takers? Okay. The next 2 items are Suzanne and Kelly's. Yeah, can you run? Or we can start. Here comes someone. Let's see who this is coming in the door. I'd rather not start without him, but we can.
Mesa School
Which
or De La Vina?
De La Vina?
Okay, Mesa School Lane's applicant's not here. Are you the applicant for De La Vina?
I am.
Would you like to come up? Because we'll skip Mesa School Lane and we'll go to 2911 De La Vina Street.
Sorry, my planner was open.
Oh, that's okay. I can hear the items without the applicant here, but I'd rather give them the opportunity to be here. So. Now our TV screen went blank. There it is. I'm ready, Joan.
Okay. Property, Joanne LeConte, Assistant Planner. This property is located at 2911 De La Vina Street. The property is zoned C2, SD2, and is a 7,500 square foot lot. The current development on site consists of a 2,258 square foot non-residential building. The proposed project involves reducing the square footage of the building by 76 square feet at the front, and exterior alterations including changing windows to bifold doors, a replacement of the concrete patio for an outdoor dining area at the front with perimeter bollards and chains, and a new wood fence, a new trash closure, and alterations to the existing parking lot. The request before you today is a front setback modification to allow alterations to the building within the required 20-foot front setback. The original project consisted of most of the improvements shown on the plans today and was approved by the Architectural Board of Review in April of 2013. However, in building plan check, it was discovered that the alterations to the building at the front required modification approval, and it was also discovered that the 8 as-built parking spaces at the rear of the property were not approved. The property is actually non-conforming to parking with 6 parking spaces. The revised project includes reducing the parking to 5 spaces to provide an accessible path of travel and a handicap space, parking space, which are allowed by code. The C2 zone does not require any setbacks for non-residential buildings. However, the SD2 overlay zone, which was established to control density and related traffic in the upper State Street area, requires new buildings to have a 10 or 20-foot front setback depending on the height of the building. In this case, the building height is over 15 feet and the setback required would be 20 feet. However, the current development on site is non-conforming to that setback at 10 feet. The proposed staff supports the front setback modification because the alterations will result in a reduction of floor area, reduction of door size. Minor alterations would be changing 2 windows to bifold doors to accommodate the outdoor dining area, and it wouldn't increase the height of anything within the setback other than the change from the doors, from the windows to doors. The alterations are not anticipated to adversely impact the adjacent neighbors or properties or the visual openness of the public street frontage, and the improvements will not increase the existing square footage of the building, the density, or traffic, which complies with the SD2 zone intent. Transportation staff has reviewed the new parking area and has requested that a condition be included that the fence in this area not exceed 10 feet by the driveway for visibility issues for people entering and exiting the driveway. Staff would like the project approved subject to the condition outlined in the staff report, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, great, thank you. Would you like to state your, am I on? Can you hear me? Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Sure. My name is Edward DeVicente, architect with DMHA. And on behalf of our client, the Luna family, they purchased this property about 2 years ago with the view to just make improvements to the building as an expansion of their existing restaurant that they have locally. And the proposed improvements were well received by the ABR and really mostly improving the front dining patio and entry to the building. And we got, as we went through plan check, it was discovered that the existing ridge is about 18 inches too high, which requires the additional setback from 10 feet to 20 feet. And that's the modification we're here requesting consideration on today. So the restaurant's been up and running. Interior improvements were done last year, and it's been very successful, and they'd like to proceed with the additional improvements to the exterior pending these approvals and building department final permitting. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay. I went out to the site, and I do have some questions regarding the scope of the project, mainly in regards to what's happening in the back of the lot. I know the modification for a front setback modification, but goes to neighborhood, compatibility and stuff. It's a real popular restaurant, and parking is an issue up there. So any loss of parking spaces in this area, off-street parking spaces, is a concern. So, and this is the existing as-built situation, and this is the proposed over here. There are some changes in this area, but can you describe to me what is going on in this back area? I know it says trash enclosures, and it has some rain barrels, but it doesn't really mention what else is the use, because and the reason why I'm having those questions is, since there are existing 6 non-conforming parking spaces, could there be a redesign that, and again, another 9 feet to have a 6th parking space?
Sure. That's there is an existing fence and cover here, which was another non-conforming. So part of the proposal is to remove.
There's the picture right here. So this is the area.
Is to remove that non-conforming condition. In the fenced-in area, we actually proposed to keep. Unfortunately, it looks like the actual fence plan wasn't included. It's kind of a support area for the back of the house. There's an existing janitor's sink and the hot water area. So it really is an area where we wanted to keep the existing fence enclosure, although remove the structure up above and keep the parking lines where they were. So the intent is that. Unfortunately, it didn't end up that clear in here. The parking configuration itself was one that was actually recommended by transportation. We had initially, because of the number of space concern that the owner has as well, we had intended to keep the existing condition. But as it was reviewed in more depth, technically, by transportation, they felt it wasn't sufficient backing space. And so that led us to this configuration that's here. It could be possible to move this existing fence line to create some additional space, whether we can get a full 9 feet. We could certainly study that. The change also from the fence, which was previously a little bit longer, almost matching the existing condition of 19 feet to 10 feet, was recent as part of this modification process. So I think in light of those updates that we would work with transportation to see if they would support an additional space there, because it does get pretty close to the building. So it would be something we'd do in tandem with them. But I think the owner's intent would be to get as many spaces as they could back there as well. So.
Why is this wall even necessary? Right now, if you see in the picture, there's just a wall. There's not really anything in here. Why? It's
to better separate the driveway area from the rear entry and provide a little bit better backdrop. There is just more of a protection area for public, so cars aren't quite. So it's a little abrupt when the building ends and vehicles come in and out. It's very tight, and so we thought it would be good to keep that fence there. It was doing a good job, although it was a little longer than it needed to be.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions for right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. I have a request to speak from John Lortzen.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I live at 2909 Serena Road, and I'm here primarily out of the parking concerns. Since the opening of the restaurant, we have noticed that the restaurant has apparently directed its employees to park in the surrounding neighborhood. As a result, employees are parking in the neighborhood for 8-hour stints. I would request that a condition be placed on this, that the on-site parking area be used for employees. Since a restaurant customer is there for an hour or less, there is more than sufficient street parking with hour limits. And just so that we don't reduplicate the impact at Serena and Arden that we now have at Serena and Samarkand because of the Delavina Surgery Center. And so I don't have any problem with their plans. It's how they're utilizing their parking.
Okay, great. Thanks.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my shtick.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this item? Do we receive any calls or?
No.
No, Kathy, we didn't receive any through. No? Okay, great. I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site, and I'm actually familiar with the neighborhood, and like I said, parking is an issue, which you brought up. So that's a concern. And also, the inside layout here is actually not the same as what's on in the building right now. So this should be updated on what it is. In regards to parking, it is a non-conforming situation in that the building's there. buildings can change the use, the non-conforming use, as long as they don't get more intense. So it was a restaurant before, it's a restaurant now. The parking there is supposed to be open and available for parking for all. And like I said, I have a concern regarding the loss of one of the legal space. I know right now it has 8, I think, or 9, but that's not the approved situation. So in terms of the improvements to the front of the building, I think that having this area as a seating area, it improves the streetscape. It brings interaction between the street and the business. It draws people in. In terms of the changes to the actual building of pushing the windows in and having the trifold doors, I think that's an appropriate improvement in regards to the commercial space and what you're requesting. But I would, like I said, I have concerns regarding the loss of any existing parking spaces. So if I were to approve this, I would like to craft a condition that would require you to explore with the transportation staff providing an additional space. I know they reviewed this and they were accepting of this with the layout. It worked, but my understanding is that they were just responding to what was provided to them, that they knew that this existing situation didn't work. They wanted it angled this way, and they know with the ADA requirements, you typically lose a parking space. But I would like you to re-examine that with the transportation staff with the goal of providing an additional parking space so that there still remains 6 non-conforming spaces out there. And then the other condition that I would like to add would be that a current seating plan, an interior plan, be included with your building permit application. And the reasoning there is that since it is a non-conforming situation, you are limited to 86, is it? 84?
I think it's 86.
You're limited to the number of seats in here. And this doesn't truly reflect what's on there. I know this wall, I think, kind of goes on more out like this, and then this counter is actually just like this, and there's a little thing in the corner, and there's seating all the way in here. So a current seating and floor plan would be necessary just so we can verify the number of seats that are there to be consistent with what's historically been there. And so I think those are my 2 comments. In regards to limiting who can use that parking space, it's something I'm not inclined to do. I understand your concerns. The parking lot is there and it's available for everyone to use. And with you researching, looking, re-examining this area of the goal of providing an additional parking space, that I think is appropriate enough. So with that comment, I can approve the project subject or making the findings outlined in the staff report, and then subject to the condition that staff proposed, and then the additional one about the current floor plan configuration, and also restudying the back area. With the goal of increasing the parking by 1. And so with that, I approve your project. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Joanne would contact you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. So did the agent for the Mesa School Lane show up? We skipped you.
I got stuck in one wreck.
Oh, really?
And I got stuck in between exits.
Yeah, well, I thought I could carry on without you, but I thought I would give you, I'd just
appreciate
keep
that.
bumping you until the end of the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we are hearing 2618 Mesa School Lane. Anytime you're ready, Joanne.
Okay.
Or well,
my
Joanne
name's-
can go first.
Okay. This property is zoned E3 and it's a 7,949 square foot lot. The current development on site consists of a one-story single-family dwelling with an attached two-car garage and a detached shed. The proposed project involves repairs and replacements to as-built 6-foot-high wood fence along both street frontages facing Mesa School Lane and Linda Road, a new 6-foot fence along the driveway, and an 8-foot high rear fence. The request before you today is for a fence height modification to allow a fence to exceed 3.5 feet in height within 10 feet of both front property lines and to exceed 3.5 feet in height within 10 feet of either side of a driveway for a distance of 20 feet back from the front lot line. The project was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board and was forwarded to the staff hearing officer with comments. This property is site constrained. There are dedicated street easements and unimproved right-of-way, and also the property is site constrained with 2 front yards. In addition, the open yard area as currently provided does not meet the location and configuration requirements of the zoning ordinance. The property owners use the secondary front yard as their primary outdoor living space. The fencing provides security and privacy for the property owners, as this property is located across the street from the Douglas Preserve on the Mesa School Lane side of the property. Transportation staff has reviewed the plans and they find the fences acceptable because the 6-foot fence along the driveway will not be a visibility issue, and due to the fact that Mesa School Lane is one way in this location, it's a one-way street and it's a low volume traffic intersection. However, transportation did request that a condition be added that the landscaping in the unimproved right-of-way shall not exceed 3 feet in height as shown on the landscape plans, which is on the next page. Staff recommends approval of the fence height modification subject to the conditions in the staff report, as the increased height of the fence is not anticipated to adversely impact the neighbors or the street, and they will not diminish visibility along the driveway or the street frontages for the intersection. That concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. I'll let you go next.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you
I was
so
going to have a question, but it might be either of you two. So you want to state your name for the record?
My name is Jeremy Roberts. I'm the architect working on the project with the Mickelsons. One of the primary reasons for the fence is privacy. This is an area where people park up and down the street to go walk their dogs, and oftentimes dogs aren't on leashes the way they should be. So the idea is to provide some privacy to the outdoor spaces that they use. And again, it looks that in the past, Mesa School Lane was actually located on the other side of the eucalyptus trees. If you go down the street, it's actually on this side of the eucalyptus trees. Several blocks down, it makes a jog and turns into this one-lane access road that comes. It took a lot of the property away when the easement was granted. So it's just trying to create some outdoor space for the owners so that there's a sense of privacy and security there.
So is Mesa School Lane, because I came down that way from Mesa to Mesa School Lane and
Okay.
cut off. So is this little area here, is it one way in front of your house?
I don't think the city has designated it one way with, but it's one lane wide, so
Yeah.
you can't get.
Functionally,
Functionally, you can't get 2 cars to pass. So,
Right.
but I think that was part of the reason for the traffic when they went to roads. They were saying, it's low volume and it's it'd be nice if it were dedicated as a one-way road. It would make sense because I think people use this more as a turnaround area when they come and park. They kind of back in and then turn back out. It seems like most of the traffic comes from down this way. So.
Okay. So the question I had, I don't know if Joanne knows or if you know, and there's some information here regarding the existing storage shed back here. It was originally a garage, and then it was supposed to be demolished, right? Or what?
No.
What is the status?
It was just the garage door was supposed to be removed. It was okay to remain as a shed. It was, in a zoning report, it was discovered that that was the condition and that the shed would be allowed to remain, but the garage door would have to be removed. And so that was the condition in the staff report.
And the concern being that it would be used as a garage and then be over parked?
Yeah, there's a two-car garage here.
Right.
This, I think, originally there was a much smaller house that sat right in here, and I think in 1985, I think it was when it was built, this home was proposed. That was turned into a storage shed, and I think in the original application it was to be torn down, and then at some point in time the city re-reviewed it. They didn't tear it down. The city re-reviewed it and determined that it was okay to stay as long as they replaced the garage door with a man door. And so that's part of what we're proposing. Is the previous owner, my client, purchased the property and is now trying to clear up the violations.
Because I was just wondering, because when the new garage was built, so it took up more land area, the addition took up more land area, why wasn't it required? Did it get an open yard modification at that time, do you know?
I believe it did.
Why was it allowed just to remain, just because it reduces the usable area of your lot?
Sure.
You don't know.
I don't know. That was the only information I had was what was in the zoning information report that just said that I want to say it was, I don't get the dates wrong, but some point in the 80s or 90s, the city determined that it was okay to stay as long as the doors were turned into something other than a garage door. So, and that hasn't been done, so we're proposing to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd had less concern with the garage door staying. I don't know that you can really get into it to use it as a garage.
It's really tight. There's another home that sits right here and a home that sits in the back. So it's it's more storage.
Okay. Then the other question I have, you had commented, and I guess I see it when I was out there, and some of the pictures illustrate your statement that cars are parked there. Do you have problems with people parking on your landscaping and stuff? I see actually there's a rolled curb.
There's a little bit of a definition right at the edge of the paving, so they're not parking on the grass, or not. It's not really grass right now, but they are right up next to it. I don't know if there's
this
other.
Actually shows it real lightly. I guess you can see the little rolled curb.
Exactly. It's not much that there. So what we were proposing as part of a response to the design review board, the city single family, was to, there are some existing rocks in here, but then to better define this area with low planting so that it becomes more apparent that it's not a neighborhood parking spot.
Okay. Yeah, those are my questions right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this item? No? Have we received any?
No.
I'll close the public comment. I went out to the site and, like I said, drove down the one-way road. No, I hope someone doesn't come the other way.
I know.
There's nowhere to plow. And I understand your concerns about privacy and wanting to make more usable area, because it is, by allowing this to remain, I looked back here and it's not real functional. It is, so the more appropriate space would be out front. And with transportation staff reviewing it and not having concerns with the visibility of it not being need to be stepped back anymore, it is an appropriate request. And I keep going back and forth whether I even need this condition about the garage door, since it's a zoning requirement, and that way if something else gets... My concern is then it just gets evolved into some other use, all of a sudden becomes a...
The owners are planning to use it for storage. That's truly they right now, they had a home in down south someplace, and they've moved there. Right now they're it's storage stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it could go either way. I don't really care if it stays or if it goes. So that's why I was thinking just remove it, because I don't really have a feeling either way.
Okay.
But I think I will just remove it. It is a zoning requirement. Just the fact, I want to make it clear, the fact that I'm reviewing it or removing it does not mean that you don't have to do it.
I understand. We're going to. So
But it's just that, if there's some way it could be kept on, still recognizing that it's a storage shed, not a
Okay.
garage, because you'd be over-parked for the
Correct.
lot, that's fine with me. So
Okay.
just to make that clear, that I'm not removing this because I think it...
I understand.
Okay. So with that, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report, and I'll approve the project subject to the one condition now about the landscaping, hiding landscaping in the right-of-way.
Okay.
Approve your project, and my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before then, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period.
Okay.
If that was to occur, Joanne would contact me.
Okay.
All right, great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I apologize again for being late.
Oh, no, that's fine, that's fine.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah. The next item is 474 Scenic Drive, if the applicant would like to come up.
Three Susans.
Critical mass, isn't it?
All right. Switch to the All right. The property at 474 Scenic Drive is approximately 16,000 square foot lot. It's located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone, and is developed with a 5-unit apartment complex. There are a total of 5 covered parking spaces that provide parking for the site, and the proposed project involves alterations to the existing apartment complex, relocation of an existing front site retaining wall to the front property line, regrading the driveway entries, replacement of a wood deck and stairs at the rear of the existing single-family residential unit, which is this building here. Replacement of an existing 2-car carport with a 2-car garage, and replacement of a 3-car carport with a new 3-car garage. The existing carport structures are non-conforming to the required 6-foot interior and rear setbacks and the minimum carport dimensions. The project will address violations listed in an enforcement case in ENF 2013-00676, and the discretionary applications before the staff hearing officer today are for 3 interior setback modifications to allow the construction of a 2-car garage and a 3-car garage within the required 6-foot interior setbacks to the east, south, and west, and an open yard modification for the location and configuration requirements of the open yard. A little bit of background on how this property was developed. This property is located near the intersection of Scenic and Harborview. This is a zoning map showing that the property that's right here is zoned E3. Just immediately to the east, we have the neighbor at 482 Scenic, who is zoned E2, and the golf course that's below here in purple that is zoned A1 SD3. And so I looked into the history of how the zoning occurred over time. The original development was constructed in 1925 with 2 duplexes and a single-family residence prior to the first permit on record, which was from 1938. The historical zoning sectional maps show that the property has been downzoned at least 2 times. The property was zoned R2 in 1930, then R1 in 1957, and finally rezoned in 1975 to the current E3 designation. which is single-family residential. The original development complied with the zoning rules on record when it was constructed, and as with each downzoning, it became more nonconforming to setbacks, open yard, and parking requirements. The two-car carport that was at the rear corner of the property, highlighted in pink here, was demolished due to some safety concerns. So it's an as-built demolition, but we were replacing it with a two-car garage that's more conforming to the city's parking design standards. Right here in this rear corner, you'll see this blue highlighted area, which is actually a city sewer easement. During this process of trying to reconstruct these garages, city staff worked with the applicant to see if we could configure the garages to avoid reconstruction over that city sewer easement. But due to the constraints of the existing development on the site and the location of the current driveway for site circulation, it was unavoidable to, we were unable to relocate it outside of the city sewer easement and maintain the garage dimensions, site circulation, and setbacks. As a result, with the three-car garage being constructed over the easement, the black highlighted area here is the three-car garage. This was the former three-car carport. The City Public Works Division has requested that there be a condition on file that the owner must apply for a minor encroachment permit to allow the construction of the garage over the city sewer easement, as well as be put on notice that in the event that they need to get in and repair that sewer line, the building might be required to be demolished, and the owner would be responsible for any repairs or replacement of the parking on site. Speaking to the modifications, the three interior setback modifications to allow the as-built demolition of the two-car carport and the three-car carport to encroach into the west, east, and south 6-foot setbacks. Staff reviewed the existing encroachments into those setbacks. The two-car carport is approximately a foot off the easterly property line where it was located prior to demolition, and they're rotating the carport around to get better access in and out of the parking spaces, which results in the building shifting to now having a 1-foot setback from the southerly property line, but a greater setback from that easterly property line. I do have an aerial map here, just so that you can see what's going on. This carport would be located in the trees canopy here at the corner of the golf course and adjacent to 15 Country Club Drive, the single-family residence to the south. Likewise, the three-car carport was oriented in a way that it was 4'5" from the interior property line to the west, and we need to rotate that building around to get better access in and out of the garage, and we'll have a 1-foot setback from the southerly property line, and that abuts 15 Country Club Drive to the south. With the exception of a small corner of the three-car garage, the majority of that three-car garage will meet the 6-foot required setback to the west. Staff supports these requested interior setback modifications because it'll allow more conforming two-car garage and three-car garages. It'll improve on-site parking conditions, encourage residents to park off-street and actually on the property. It also provides 5 individual garages for the 5 individual tenants that they have their own lockable garage storage. And the proposed garages are not anticipated to adversely impact the adjacent residential neighbor to the west or south or the golf course to the east. As a result of the garages rotating, it does reduce the only open yard that complies with the current location and configuration requirements here in the back that's highlighted in green. There were some open yard areas to the east and west of the single-family residence, which are getting diminished also in order to provide a backup area for the vehicles. Staff did review the site plan and felt that this mod could be supported in large part because between the existing buildings, there is a open yard that is 1,250 square feet. I think he shows 1,200 square feet in his hatching. However, he does not go down all the way to the face of the single-family residence. And this is an area that's additional recreation space in between the buildings. In addition, they are relocating that front wall, and there will be some minor grading there, which provides even more outdoor recreation space. Happens to be in the front setback, but it's additional areas to recreate. So staff is supportive of that modification. It feels that the modifications requested are do not affect the visual openness of the public street frontage. The Architectural Board of Review reviewed this project 3 times, and at the last hearing on February 3rd of this year, the board forwarded the application feeling that the modifications were aesthetically appropriate and did not pose consistency issues with the single family or the Architectural Design Board guidelines. With that, staff recommends approval of the project, making the findings outlined in the staff report and subject to the conditions in the staff report. I did have a minor wording change to condition 3, which I would like to read. If the garage are required to be demolished by Public Works, the applicant shall obtain a permit to demolish the garage or garages, and obtain the necessary approvals and permits for the replacement on-site parking. So it's a little bit more streamlined than the one that's in the staff report. And with that, I would turn it over to the applicant if he has anything to add.
Okay, yeah, I do have some questions, but I will wait after the applicant speaks. Do you want to state your name for the record?
Sure. My name is Daniel Lindsay. I'm the trustee for the Scenic Drive Trust.
Daniel, wait, just a minute. Daniel?
Daniel Lindsay, Lindsay.
And I'm Jonathan Villegas. I'm the architect and engineer on this project.
And Suzanne Yates.
Okay, great. You have anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, mainly that we're very considerate with the current architectural style of this particular project. And we were originally thinking this was going to be a pretty simple project, just demoing the existing carports and replacing them with garages that were going to hopefully mitigate the on-street parking. So that way we can have more privacy in the backyard for the tenants to have their own parking spots, and also security reasons so they could actually have lockable storage space for their garages. And then we ran into these particular modifications that needed to be done for this particular project, and it did complicate things quite a bit. But I think overall we have been very sensitive to, like I said, the architectural style and keeping the casitas look and feel with the architectural changes that we're making.
Okay, now when you talk about garages and storage, I don't see any storage areas denoted in the garages. So what do you mean when garages and storage?
Well, they'll probably have storage on shelves above, so probably 6 feet 8 inches above in the back. That doesn't encroach into the driveway area. So we'll have some sort of storage back there. But basically, they're going to be lockable garages where before they were open, and the current tenants were just putting their items of storage in the garages without any sort of security.
Okay.
One of the other issues that was forcing our hand on this too was, if you look at that particular area, the elevation is really poor. It's feeding all the runoff from rains into these garages during the winter months. And so if you're storing anything in these things, all the water's running down this sluiceway basically into the garages. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in this project is raising the elevation of the slab of these things up a couple of feet so we can mitigate that problem. That way in the future we won't have any moisture problems in these garage areas.
And how are you handling drainage in this area in general?
Well, what we have a sump over here, and we also have a drain over here that drains to the golf course, which seems to be helping a little bit. We also have French drains around all of the perimeter of the buildings that feed to this sump drain that's over here that's underground. It's a gravel pit. And so the plan is to take and put a trench drain in front of both of these things that feeds to the existing network of drains.
And then where's the sump? Does it pump it out to the street then?
No, it's just simply a sump that assimilates the moisture over time. It's just a deep gravel sump that just absorbs it over time, yeah. And I've never seen a golf course complain about getting extra water for free.
Oh, okay. And then in regards to the garages, are there any openings proposed in the setback?
No.
I didn't see
No.
any. Okay.
The only openings are the garage doors themselves.
Exactly.
That's fine, okay. And then have you, or are you aware, are there any preliminary discussions with Public Works staff on allowing the encroachment of the garages over their easement?
Yeah, and that was the requirement that we needed to put in place that required it would be up to the owner's expense if Public Works needed to do any sort of repairs for the existing sewer line. We're hoping that it doesn't require a full demolish of the garages, that we could somehow shore it up while they do work on it. So,
Yeah, just for your information, there is a manhole here, roughly, and we actually had to do some sewer work about a year ago, and that line is about 8.5 feet down. So if I add 2 feet to my elevation for the slab, we're talking about a sewer line that's about 10 feet down. So my assumption is at some point, if the line becomes an issue, we can do some sort of subterranean excavation without affecting the structure, both from a safety perspective as well as a structural integrity perspective.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd be really nervous about having to destroy something I just spent money building.
Right. That is that is a possibility.
And also that line terminates actually here. So the only feeder to that sewer line is this property, and it goes eventually to Harbor View. So there's not a lot of traffic in that line.
And so then in regards to the open yard modification request, do the tenants have any like private areas, little balconies? I don't see that there's any room for it on
No.
site. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they have the B has their own private balcony.
Yeah, every unit has gotten very customized, obviously, over the years.
And D has its own little patio.
Yeah, what's happened, so you have an understanding, is we do have little paver areas for people, like if they want to set up a barbecue or something over here that's adjacent to the Mostrip driveway through.
Okay.
So if you look at some of your elevation shots, and I don't think I focused on them in those pictures, but you'll see that everybody has that. B does have a balcony. Unit C has their deck. Unit D has a little area back here. And then Unit E has a little area here.
This area right here, this is all grass.
Put it on
And people usually put a little table and chairs right there, and that's all grass. So that's usually E's private little area.
Oh,
So
you
then-
turn on the mic right in front of you.
Oh, sorry.
So one of the things that we were hoping to gain with this, because one of the areas we haven't really touched upon yet today was the retaining wall. So we have an original to the property retaining wall that was probably put in around 1927, and it's failing. It's terracotta block.
Just right here.
Yeah, and what we've
starting to fall
discovered
over.
is there's no foundation to it. It's just terracotta block. It's sort of freestanding. But one of the things that we were hoping for is if we could actually move it up to the edge of the property line, which actually ultimately is ending up about here, we'll be able to regain a lot of footprint for the tenants in the area of Unit E here and Unit A a little bit. So essentially what we're going to see this do is rotate like this and add some green space there and add a little bit more privacy for Unit E, because they don't really have much of anything. They just have a little spot like that, and then, of course, the central area.
We each have the back area that
Yeah.
has pavers for
Right.
privacy too.
And then the other issue that I wanted to bring up too, because I noticed it on the blueprint, because I know somebody mentioned it in a previous meeting, and that was a discussion about planting some sort of a vine or something to grow on the back of the
Yeah, that was part of
garages.
the ABR requirements.
Yeah, ABR was interested in doing that, and I'm not sure who's going to be viewing, because you were over at the property yesterday, so we got to visit with you a little bit and talk about it. The back of the property is heavily hedged already by the adjoining property, the abutting property on Country Club Drive. And so to put additional growth here seems sort of superfluous, because nobody's going to be seeing it anyway, and I'd rather not have to install additional water and plantings for places that aren't going to be seen. Plus, for now, we've been putting storage sheds back there to try to augment the situation for storage. As you recall, this is a 1927 structure. Storage is absolutely non-existent.
Closets are like
This
this
is
small.
Yeah, this is when people own 3 shirts, and so today's tenants just have a real problem with that. So what we try to do is augment it with these little storage containers. One of our goals in this thing with the garages was to have a little bit, at least, overhead storage in the garage, so that a guy could go up there and put some boxes or something at least and get them out of their units. And maybe we might be able to get to the point of eliminating these. I don't know.
Well, 2 comments in regards to that.
Yeah.
The design, the landscaping stuff, that's ABR's purview. I have no
Okay.
say over that. These won't be allowed in this layout. This is the building.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to improve this, it's a 1-foot setback, so there could be nothing in that 1-foot area. So these will not be able to,
Okay.
yeah, they won't be able to
I
remain
don't
here.
see that they would be needed as much now if we had the garages,
Yeah, and also because
Sure.
we have downpipes that are coming from the flat roof, and those are going into some sort of gravel pit, and that's probably where we'll be putting the vines as well, growing out of those. So.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
design issue. It's not my.
Okay,
My
not your
issue.
area. All
Right.
right.
So those are my question. Yeah, those are my questions.
Okay.
So I would like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this item? No. I did receive an email from neighbor Carlos Oliveira expressing concerns with the trees, and the tree issue is actually a private issue. I'm not going to get involved with that, so that's between the 2 property owners.
Which trees are we talking about?
The real
Oh, yeah.
The ones
rear
that we talked to you
property.
about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a private issue. City will not get involved in that.
Right.
What was his concern about it? I mean, they're his trees.
Did you not get a copy? Do you have?
I gave a copy to
Yeah.
Jonathan.
They're just regarding the request that you guys have regarding them to take out the trees
No.
and trim. We're not going to get into it. So
Okay,
you can read the
okay.
letter.
Well,
We're
I'll
not-
just
that's
read
not-
it at our
I'm not
time.
going to get into
We'll read it
now.
off
Right,
schedule.
and then the second question they have is regarding drainage. That's why I was asking how you're handling drainage.
Right.
And that will be something that will be looked at during the plan check process. And
Okay.
Suzanne will follow
You bet.
that. So it sounds like you're proposing some enhancements in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only one I received. Is that correct? Okay. So I'll close the public hearing. As you mentioned, I did go out to the site, and I got there perfect timing. You guys were just leaving, so you were able to
Okey-doke.
walk with me around the site and show the improvements. You answered all my questions. In regards to the setback encroachments, and I don't remember, this is the west? In regards to the west encroachment, it's a very small area. You're actually pulling it out of the setback. I think that's an appropriate request. In regards to the rear property line, it is getting closer to the rear property line. However, there's no openings, and I think having it closer is better, and then having it set, like 3 feet back, it provides it. That would have more of a dead space, not usable, collect items, and 1 foot gives you enough room to be able to do maintenance to that wall.
Paint or whatever. you
Yeah,
have to
whatever
do.
you need to do.
But
So
doesn't allow extra stuff.
Yeah, in regards to interfacing between the two neighbors, I don't believe the use of a garage, a wall, is going to cause off-site impacts. And then in regards to the east property line with the golf course as your neighbor, again, that's appropriate. I agree with staff's changes to condition 3. As I was reading the report, I know inside the report it talks about certain conditions, and then when you get to the end, they're a little bit different, and I understand during the report preparation, staff in the review, they massage the conditions, and so I understand why it's changed. I actually do have a question for Suzanne. In reading the, I think the minutes that were attached, it talked about there was an archaeological report, and that they don't anticipate any things to be found.
Correct.
Right.
But it recommends that standard archaeological.
Unanticipated
here.
archaeological
Uh-huh.
impact.
Okay.
It's on the plans
I'm
already.
going to add something similar to that to this, since I am making, as part of my action is environmental review, and since that is a requirement, I want to add that as part of the condition.
Condition, okay,
Yeah.
sure. So we could leave it here, and that's fine.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
It needs to be on the
to be
plan
on there, yeah.
regardless.
So that's perfect, but just in terms of the resolution that gets produced as part of this action today,
Okay.
it'll be included as that.
And do we also include all the resolutions on a separate sheet
For building
for
permit.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I also want to add a condition that the garages shall remain available for parking of vehicles, and that any storage in the garage shall not impede use for vehicles. They're proposed to be
The
garages.
priority is a garage.
Yeah, as a garage, and that if you can get additional space in the rafters, that's good. I know we allow storage shelves certain height above the floor. That's fine, but it just can't impede.
It sounds like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with the change to condition 3 and the addition of those two additional ones regarding garages being available for parking and the archaeological notice, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve your project. My action is appealable, as you heard, to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Suzanne would contact you.
Great.
Okay?
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So last project is 35 North Calle Cesar Chavez.
Thanks, Suzanne.
If the applicants would like to come up. Good morning. Think you submitted enough photos?
They kept asking for more. We went back to ABR at least 3 times, maybe 4.
There's like duplicates.
Yes. But that's the other thing is, I had to submit separate ones to ABR into here, and so it's.
Got the room all to ourselves.
Do you have a plan? I can unfold it while you're getting your mic on. There's no color.
You want color?
Usually the buildings are outlined and everything's all,
Highlight?
yeah. Okay, anytime you're ready.
Okay. So Kelly Broderson, Community Development. The project I'm presenting today is located at 35 North Calle Cesar Chavez. It's a 28,350 square foot site in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. It's in the general plan land use designation of general, urban, ocean-related industrial, and it's also in the local coastal plan land use designation of ocean-oriented industrial. And it's zoned OM1, ocean-oriented light manufacturing. As you can see from this site plan here, it's bordered by Calle Cesar Chavez here and Yanonali Street here. Across the street to the north is the rescue mission. To the west is the city's El Estero wastewater treatment plant. to the south is, I think, the largest footprint building in the city, the Vercal building. And then the 101 is just north of the rescue mission, Highway 101. The proposed project consists of the demolition and reconstruction of 2 existing one-story storage buildings. This building here at the back and this building in the front. Building C is 3154 square feet and would be reconstructed at a little bit bigger at 3626 square feet. Building D would be rebuilt in the same size. This one's going to get a little bit bigger. And then there's Building B, which is an as-built storage building, about 1,300 square feet. There's also an 875 square foot office building that will remain. And there's 21 parking spaces on the site. The applications the applicants are requesting are a coastal development permit to allow the proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, and a development plan to allow 1,800 square feet of non-residential floor area. So just to go through the project statistics again, Building A, office building, is to remain. It's 875. There's an as-built storage building here, 1341. This building here, Building C, will be pulled back from the street front and will be a little bit bigger, about, it's going to be going from 3154 to 3626. And then this building will be built a little bit further away from the building setback or building property lines, and it'll be the same size. And then the parking spaces, the office is being built at, or parked at 1 space per 250 square feet, so 3.5 spaces required there. The storage buildings are at 1 per 500, so the required spaces is 20, and they're meeting that requirement on site. Once the project is complete, the existing building, or the proposed buildings would be used for boat storage and repair and related office, which is consistent with the allowed uses in the OM1 zone. Regarding the development plan application, the Santa Barbara Municipal Code regulates the city's non-residential growth management program. Each lot is allocated 2,000 square feet of small additions and 1,000 square feet of minor additions, which allows for this lot 3,000 square feet of non-residential additions. No additions have taken place on the site since the implementation of the non-residential growth management ordinance, other than the as-built storage building. So this proposal consists of legalizing the as-built storage building and replacing 2 existing warehouses. And one of the buildings will be a little bit bigger, about 472 square feet bigger. So the total amount of non-residential square footage with the as-built storage building and the addition to this building is 1,813 square feet. The project was also reviewed for consistency with the local coastal plan and the general plan. Coastal issues in this area include potential seismic hazards related to liquefaction, recreational opportunities in the waterfront, visitors serving commercial possibilities, ocean-oriented industry related to the harbor, and adequate public services related to circulation, transit, and parking facilities. Recognizing that there are limited areas designated and appropriate for industrial development in the city, this proposed boat storage and repair is consistent with the local coastal plan policies for this area. And regarding the general plan, the proposed project is consistent with the general plan policies, which include preserving and encouraging the long-term integrity of light manufacturing uses and protecting industrial zoned areas. And it also proposes to properly treat and reduce stormwater runoff. They're adding some retention basins, right, Rex?
Mm-hmm. Subterranean retention basins.
Mm-hmm. And then the project was reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review on 4 separate occasions. And at the last meeting on February 18th, 2014, the board determined the project was consistent with the project compatibility criteria and stated the project design is consistent with the surrounding area and the neighborhood, and the size and mass and height are appropriate for the site. The open space on the site and the landscaping have been greatly improved, and they forwarded the project to the staff hearing officer today, and it will return to the full board as it proceeds through the process. So with that, staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the coastal development permit and the development plan, making the findings in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. And we have the architect, Rex Ruskoff, and the property owners, Jaime Melgoza and Mark Robotin, here to represent the project.
How do you explain last one?
Melgoza, M-E-L-G-O-Z-A. Rabatin, Rabatin.
And what was your first name again?
Mark.
Mark, yeah. Great, thanks. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think the staff report covered it pretty well. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Okay. First, I'll open the public hearing then. There's no one here. I'll open the public hearing. There's no one here. Have we received any letters?
I have not received anything.
No. At the design review board, this was, did they get any comments? This has their minutes or their motions and stuff. Did anyone show up at design review?
No, we never had anybody come and speak either for or against the project at any of the hearings.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and looked at it, and my first concern, and it's been a little late, but it was the fact that there's stuff all over the parking area and outside, and with boat storage, boat repair, is it going to eventually migrate out into the parking areas? But there is a condition that was put on here by staff, and you've read that the parking area and access thereto shall be kept open and available in the manner in which it was designated or designed and permitted. So that was that concern. This area of the coastal zone really doesn't have any significant issue areas. It's not in a visual area that we want to preserve views of something important like mountains or the ocean. It's an industrial area. The uses in the buildings there reflect that zone category. So in terms of the coastal development permit, I don't have much comments. There's parking requirement. You're meeting the parking demand. You're not going to cause any off-site parking. In terms of public improvements, I noticed you are dedicating a portion of your property to improve that. That's a community benefit. I like and agree with the comments that the design board have been making, and you have been really responsive to in terms of making the street interface pretty with landscaping and pulling the building back. I think that's an improvement. Yes, the buildings are getting a little bit bigger, and they are getting quite a bit taller, but I don't believe that's really a concern in this area. I know in this visual here, you indicate what the height of the existing building is and then what's the new building. But like I said, it's consistent with the buildings in the neighborhood. I did have a question for staff on one of the proposed conditions, and it's on page 8. And it's number F3. And it says new construction photographs. Photographs of the new construction taken from the same location as those taken of the story poles prior to project approval shall be taken. There was no story poles when I was there. Was there story poles for the design board?
No.
No? Okay. So then I'll just cross that out because that's the idea. That's part of the requirements for story poles is that we document at project completion.
Sticks that go up and show how high what the building's going to look like,
Yeah,
so
like
you can
an
get
outline.
a visual of the mass of the building.
Okay, and then the other question regarding, it's not really a condition, on page 9, where it talks about notice of development plan time limits and notice of coastal development permit time limits. When you have a development plan all by itself, it's good for 4 years. And when you have a coastal development permit by itself, it's good for 2 years. But our code says if you have multiple approvals, the longest approval time period applies. So in this case, it would be 4 years. So I was just questioning why it says 2 here, because it says otherwise, unless, it's 2 years unless otherwise explicitly modified by conditions of approval for the coastal development permit. There's no conditions that modified it longer, so I wanted to just change it 4.
Fine.
Okay.
I think I was just using the template and demonstrating that each has a different time frame,
Yeah.
but that the longest one applied.
Okay, so, if you don't object having your project be valid for 2 more years.
No objections.
It already is by the code, so this really wouldn't, it would confuse things. It wouldn't limit you to 2 years, but it would confuse, it could could potentially confuse.
They're actually very anxious to get going, so it's kind of a moot point, but it's good to know that it's, should anything prevent us from proceeding, we have 4 years, so.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, like I've said in my comments, I think this will be an improvement to the neighborhood. They're new buildings, they're nice-looking buildings. It improves the corner. You're adding some more landscaping. You're providing adequate parking. I think for all those reasons, I can support your project and make the findings outlined in the staff report. And subject to the conditions as I revised them today, there is one formatting thing, but it's no big deal. So my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period, and if that was to occur, Kelly would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'm standing on your welcome mat, but the welcome